I'd like to thank my patrons for making this video possible, and unfortunately I cannot thank a particular one because I just moved and I don't have internet yet. Alright, what am I painting here? I'm in Procreate and I'm doing a quick thumbnail of what I'm going to now paint in Photoshop. That flew by fast, but sorry, Procreate's playbacks are pretty quick. That may be a weird painting to call a thumbnail. I think really it's weird to call any digital painting or comp a thumbnail or anything like that because that implies that it is small. You can do them small if you stay zoomed out or something like that, but I don't really think that that's what it's about anymore. I think the idea is that you do it simply and that you do it quickly. And, you know, for me, I try to keep it in my mind as like a cartoon version of a picture. Maybe that's not for everyone, but the idea for me that the thumbnail is like a simplified graphic version of a picture that if you were to only add detail to the thumbnail, it would be a gorgeous masterpiece. That really stresses me out. That makes me not want to do thumbnails. And in fact, it makes me not want to do pictures ever. So I try to fix that for myself and make myself want to make pictures by thinking of the thumbnail as a cartoon. Like, it's not just simplified, it's like a playful, weird, exaggerated, more, oh my God, what would be the words to describe it? It's a very different version of the picture. I just want my thumbnails to be a first stab, like more like if the picture was already done, right? If my finished painting was already done, the thumbnail would be maybe what a kid would paint trying to remember the picture, right? Obviously it has more skill and draftsmanship in it than a kid would do, but that's the mindset. Like, if the final picture was already done, what would it be like if somebody who saw it, maybe a very young person like a kid, painted it just trying to remember it, just trying to capture the big idea, like this figure was kind of like this and they were on top of that and there was another person over here and these things seemed very small and these things seemed very big. Maybe this is odd, but that's how I try to think of quote unquote thumbnails or first sketches or studies. Like, I really want them to be a very first distant image of them. And that does a few things for me. One, it makes me much less stressed out, which is extremely useful. But then also it makes me want to do it again, right? If I actually did it in that mindset and I kind of drew it in that mindset, that is very encouraging. You know, it makes me want to continue to develop it and to do the quote unquote real picture, or like I'm doing here in this video, sort of just a second pass of what would maybe be 5 or 6 attempts in order to get to a real final painting. It makes me want to do that because the first image that I did, I know is very, very different from what the final would be. So it's not boring. It's exciting. I know that the next one doesn't actually have to look it doesn't really have to look anything like this first one. It can really be very different and brand new while just elaborating or iterating upon the spirit of this first cartoon sketch. That makes me want to keep going. And it makes it almost inevitable that the next sketch is going to be more articulated, maybe more sophisticated, have more layers going on, have more things happening in it, either in terms of actual content or in just, like I said, some sort of technical sophistication or something like that. Yeah, that works well for me. That keeps me going. That keeps me making pictures. And my priority always with everything in my process is what keeps me making pictures and what doesn't. That's always what I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to add in and keep things that make me want to make pictures, make more art, and I'm trying to remove the things that make me fall asleep and make me not want to make pictures. All of the things that bore me to tears, and not in a like, oh, I'm challenged way. Like, it's fine to be challenged, but you know what a good challenge feels like, right? A good challenge is big enough and complicated enough and interesting enough that even though it threatens to destroy you, even though you threaten to be dashed permanently against the rocks of that challenge, you are excited and interested in meeting it, and it captures your attention, and you think about it when you're not at the drawing table. That's a good kind of challenge. That's really operating at the edge of your ability. Then there's the other stuff that is really just, it's not challenging, and it is truly just utterly boring, and it's taking you out of it. And that stuff I try to remove. I try to hunt it down. When I find it, I ask myself, why did I think I had to do this? 9 times out of 10, the reason is because someone who I never spoke to, I saw them doing it and I just assumed it had to be a good idea, or someone that I did talk to just thoughtlessly said, oh, you got to do this. And I've just been living the consequences of that ever since, right? Those are not good reasons. Neither of those is a good reason. I try to pinpoint that and then I get rid of it. And then I just try to remove that from my process and replace it with something that does excite me, right? It might be something completely different from what I removed. It might be something kind of similar to the thing that I removed. It might be a switch, a slight change to the process that makes a big difference in my mentality. And sometimes you just take it out completely and you don't replace it. Turns out that there was just a part of your process that you didn't need. It wasn't making the pictures better. It wasn't fun for you. It wasn't giving you information. It was just something that snuck in sort of unvetted. Someone put it there, someone else, or you unconsciously stuck it in there thinking that you had to do this thing. And now it's just out and you do something, you move on to the next step, or you spend more time in the step before it. So that's what I was doing with that all the way at the beginning of this video. That's what I was doing in that little first stab that was done in Procreate. And then I put that first sketch in the corner of a Photoshop document, and I started not recreating it, not upgrading it or taking it to the next level. Not really. I really just kind of look at that first stab as inspiration. I'm almost just being inspired by that first cartoon. I think there needs to be a better word, because inspired makes it sound like I'm looking up to that sketch. I'm not. I'm looking down on it. I'm just farming the essential core little nugget, the little seed that says this is the idea, what is actually happening in this picture. And then I'm changing basically everything else, the positions of things, the overall canvas shape, the orientation of one thing to another, the scale of everything, the colors, the values, the design, everything. I'm just changing everything. I really try not to feel very much connected or enslaved to that first sketch. And as you can see here in the process of me doing the second pass on this idea, I very rarely turn the thumbnail on. It's still in there. If you look at my layers on the left, all the way at the top there, it says thumb. And if I click that on, it'll show up in the top left corner of the painting. But yeah, I very rarely look at it. I leave it behind very quickly. So I don't know I was on a real lava kick. All right, this was this painting, and the 2 previous Photoshop paintings that are on this channel I just got on this horrible lava kick. Then I just used it to make these 3 Paradise Lost pictures. I don't know what to tell you. Sometimes you just get something stuck in your head and you're just like, I just gotta paint lava over and over and over again. It has a really cool effect. Lava is a really lovely texture and lighting situation. It's like, certain kinds of lava, they have really crazy hooky shapes, and it creates all these little caverns inside of itself. Like, it's yellower where it's hotter, and then it's redder where it's cooler, and there's like the black parts, the like crusty parts of the lava that float over the fiery parts, but then they're surrounded by so much glowing stuff that they're not really black. When you paint them, they are like a dark violet or a really dark magenta or like a very dark red, but they still look dark compared to all of that really bright stuff around them. But it's not that bright, it's still just fire. Fire is actually surprisingly dark compared to what we think of generally for local light sources like light bulbs in your house or the sky or the sun. It's pretty dark. It doesn't really affect that much stuff around it. And then you just juice it with a little bit of glow. Oh man, I love it. Lava is such a cool texture. I just got hooked on it. I had to do a few paintings with it. Oh, I'm breathless after that. Jeez. Oh, sorry. calm down a little bit. I just get so excited about lava sometimes. Then you just throw a skull in there, throw the devil in there. You got yourself a picture, all right? Really, what more are you looking for? Like, really, what more are you looking for? What do you want in a picture if you don't want lava, skulls, and the devil? How can you not think that's cool? What more are you looking for in a picture? Like, what do you want? I know what you want. You want sexy rabbits, don't you? I'm sick of this. I can't take this anymore. I can't stand the sexualization of rabbits. I mean, I'm done with it. I'm really done with it. Like, what was her name? Judy Hopps in Zootopia? What was that? We let that happen? That was a hot rabbit, man. I took a bit of time to think about the things that I say permanently on the record on the internet. And I've decided to delete the previous take. I implied certain things about Lieutenant Judy Hopps that I think would be better to keep off the public record. So I'm instead going to talk about that Peter Cottontail movie on Netflix with the thumbnail where he's like reclining on a bed of carrots and he's got the flannel shirt on, but it's open, right? It's like it's just like a little open, exposing his chest. I'd like to stop talking about attractive anthropomorphized rabbits, but culture keeps dragging me back. It's a deep problem. It's clearly an extremely deep problem, probably the result of capitalism and Marxism. So let's just table it for now, because it's probably too nuanced and sophisticated for us to cure on this channel. And let's just talk about the worthy contents of pictures and art, which, as we said, are Lucifer, the morning star, the devil, skulls, and fire. Those are the only worthy contents for pictures. Everything else is morally reprehensible, and we should instead focus our efforts on depicting paragons of moral rectitude like Satan, like the adversary Satan. Okay, let me make up for everything that just happened here by giving you just some painting tips, just a random list of painting tips that you can take with you so that this whole thing isn't a wash. Start low contrast. I usually start with two noticeably different colors in a gradient to begin my canvas with, and they're very close in value so that I stay low contrast. It's very easy to go high contrast in digital painting because you can just jump right to perfect white and perfect black right away. Very, very easy to go full contrast range. So it's better to build up slowly, not all the time, but for most people, it's better to build up slowly because most people don't know how to judge the full contrast range perfectly right off the bat with everything that they put down. If you've been doing it a very long time, you can do that, but most people can not. And indeed, you would need to be a freaky skilled or just intuitively in touch beginner intermediate artist to be able to do that. So for most people, it works better to begin low contrast so that you see things kind of emerge from the medium and they're not so attention grabbing, so concretized right off the bat, and you can adjust them, make them better, put them back into their proper place, let something that is supposed to get more attention rise above that thing that you just put down. It just gives you more flexibility. Whereas going full contrast range early on really demands that you have a very clear idea of what you're doing basically right from the beginning. So I start my canvas with two colors in a gradient. That could be diagonal gradient, left to right, top to bottom, anything. It doesn't mean I use the gradient tool. You could also just brush it in, but I do use the gradient tool a lot of the time. And they're very low contrast. So one is only slightly lighter than the other, usually. And I treat them like light sources. So you don't have to do that, but I tend to like to do that. Whatever, let's say I put down a slightly blue color and a slightly tan color as the two base colors on a canvas. I will just to begin, I can always change it later. I will say that the blue gradient is a blue light source coming from somewhere in that direction, and the tan light source and the tan gradient indicates a tan light source coming in the opposing direction. And then that gives me some basis to start modeling form and carving things out in the picture. Another random painting tip, don't forget that if you're thinking of a moment in your painting being a very saturated color, let's say like this lava, I want it to be very saturated red lava, but it could be anything. You could say you're going to do a very yellow banner in the hand of a knight or something like that. If you are thinking of a maxed out, very saturated, very bold color for a moment in your painting, that means you are also thinking of a very concrete value. That yellow, if you want it to be a very bold yellow, is going to have to be very high in value. If you have a red moment and you want it to be as red can get, it's got to be like 50% gray. That is the chroma point of those colors. The chroma point is the value at which a particular hue reaches its maximum saturation. And most of the colors have different ones, right? So yellow and green can get very, very high in value while becoming extremely saturated. Yellow cannot be very dark and yellow. It tends to look like mud, or it starts turning green. It just won't read like yellow. Blue and violet can be extremely dark and extremely saturated, and red and orange can do great work in the mid-range. And it's a very important thing to keep in mind when you're composing your picture, because they lock you into value structures, right? If you want that yellow banner to pop off, you need to put that very bright yellow banner over a kind of step down sky, for example, because it needs to have darker colors behind it to make it pop off, and not a blown out white sky, because those colors are going to be at almost the exact same value. So always keep that in mind. If you are thinking of your picture, if you're imagining it in your mind, and there's a moment that you know wants to be a very particular color, remember, you are also thinking of a very particular value, and you need to structure around that. You need to plan to use different hues or particular hues that can get down to darker values or lighter values to accommodate and provide contrast for that particular chroma point of that color. You know what? I feel like I'm a little frantic right now, and I think that it's because I'm overcompensating for the exhaustion that I'm feeling from being jet lagged and moving. I just moved. It's been a crazy couple of days. You know what? I'm going to go make a cup of tea and let the caffeine wake me up for real. And then we'll see if that, ironically, makes me less frantic. That makes no sense, does it? And yet I'm going to do it. Why do I think that makes sense? That is completely backwards. That is the exact opposite of what's going to happen. Whatever. I want tea. All right. I have my tea. Very useful. What I want to muse about while I drink my tea. You know, I know how hard it is to be an artist in terms of the loneliness. It's very lonely pursuit. My wife went off to school today, and she has not had to do that in a year because of the closures, school closures and everything going online. And it's just got me thinking, reminiscing. I mean, I got so used to having her around every day. You know, I got used to that fast. I've been working from home for, I don't know, something like 6 years now. I think it's something like that, 5 or 6 years. I think I've been working exclusively from home. Not exclusively. I've done jobs where I go into the studio or the agency to do the job, but most of my time has been spent working from home. And it was certainly surprising to see everybody else get thrust into that and have to learn the lessons that I'd been grappling with for a few years already. But man, as hard as that was for everyone and as bad as everything was, obviously, sure was nice to have my wife around all the time. And now it's back. Well, it's half back. She is gone about half the week, and then she's learning from home the other half of the week. But even just this is the first day that she's gone back. And I'm like, oh my, this is the first day that I've been just alone for the vast majority of the day in a very long time. And I feel fine. I mean, I always feel crazy, but I feel fine. But it's just making me remember how much time I spent alone over the years in the big picture of things. How much time when you're an artist you spend isolated, head down, not talking, just moving your hand. And if you're not working at a place as an artist, just how much time you spend at your house alone, just you and your thoughts. It's not easy. It's really not easy. I know it's not easy. My heart goes out to everyone who's doing it. And we're all in this together. We need to have solidarity for each other, because it is a very hard grind, mental health wise, being an artist. Very, very hard grind. It's taxing. It is truly taxing. You are trying to do this thing that you love and that sustains you, and that for many of us, you really feel like you can't not do it, right? That's why I think of it as the art demon. It's like, you don't have a choice in this. It's just got its claws in you, and there's no getting away. You have to do this, and it doesn't matter what's going to happen in your life. It doesn't matter what's going on. You're going to wind up either basing your whole life around this, or you're going to take every spare moment that you can to sneak it in. So with that there, that we really don't have any choice, and that we love it, and that it sustains us, it's amazing that operationally what that requires us to do is sit in rooms for extended periods of time with very little other stimulus, just alone with our thoughts. It becomes very meditative very quickly. And if you've ever tried doing sitting meditation, you know that things come up. It's not fun the whole time. Having set aside time to sit there and notice your thoughts sure sets you up for a lot of time intimately noticing painful thoughts like loneliness. And I've been there. I think we've all been there. And I'm just thinking about it now. I guess I'm low-key wondering if it's going to come back, if I'm looking down the barrel of feeling that a lot again. I got real comfy this past year, with everybody being home, spending, even when I was alone, working at my desk alone, I was not lonely. There was other people in the house. There was people around. People were available. You could call people. Everybody wasn't at work most of the time where they couldn't chat. It's different. It really is different. I wonder how much loneliness we're all looking down the barrel of now as maybe things start to return to some previous state. Art's hard. It's a struggle of so many things other than skill and other than how you make art. That's what we can get caught up on. We get really obsessed with it, but that's really so little of it. And I feel like so few people quit because of a lack of skill. That's really not what winds up killing people in the end. Art killing people. That's really not what does it most of the time. When people hang up their hat, say, I just can't bear it anymore. I gotta let this go because it's gonna kill me. I'm done with it before it's done with me. Most of the time, the people who have that experience, it's not because of problems with their skills. It's problems with everything else. Their mental health, what they expect from themselves, what others expect from them, what others need from them. Not having guidance, not knowing what's realistic, knowing what's unrealistic, knowing how the hell to get anywhere, do anything in this crazy, crazy world of art especially these days, especially in our current culture where art is as needed for the artist as it ever was, right? There's just as many people who need to make art, who must produce it, who have the compulsion, who are going to do it no matter what. There's just as many people as there ever was who need that and who do that. But the paths are so confusing and so different, and art is its value is declining these days. Maybe not all art, but I'm saying art in the small sense, our little drawing and painting niche, its value and its position in society is very different from what it used to be, what it was for most of art history. We're on the other side of the pendulum swing. Drawing and painting dominated for most of art history. They were a really, really big part. It was drawing, painting, sculpture, and tapestries, baby. And that was tops. Now you can barely get anyone to pay you for it. Everyone just expects it for free, or at least cheap. That's hard. That's hard on the people who have to do it, who are going to do it no matter what. And unfortunately, one breeds the other, right? You have to do it, so you'll do it for less pay. Enough people do that, social status goes down, and then it produces the feeling that it's not valuable. But art itself has not changed. Art itself is as unblemished, untouched, and as beautiful and vibrant as ever. It is only the conditions around it that have changed. Only the conditions around it have changed. Interesting. I don't know. I guess I'm just in a pensive mood because I just moved and I feel like I'm changing things, another new step, thinking a year ahead and thinking back on the past year. You know how you get when you reach a milestone, a turning point, new things are starting. You get pensive. Didn't I say I was going to do random painting tips instead of all of this stuff, the real stuff, the real struggle of art? Well, here's some. Just always think of the big shape. Use the biggest brush that you can, even in digital. I like to make it comically big. I like to start by making the brush as big as the entire object that I believe the stroke I'm about to put down belongs to. And I see how far I can go with that. No, that's very general, but digital paintbrushes all do different things, right? Some always stay the same width, some taper. So just as a general idea, just as a pithy way to think of how big could it possibly be, do that, or however big you think is too big, double it, and then try to paint the thing that you're going to paint with that instead. I tend to get nice broad results when I do that. And what I mean by broad is focused on the primary shape, focused on the big things about that particular form or that particular object. And it gives you large gradients and large value movements, which tend to be more important to manage and more important to design beautifully than small value movements. So on my good days, when I'm feeling very mindful, I always try to do that, and I usually get good results from it. You should try it out. And you should also try out being happy and not being lonely and not being so hard on yourself, and remembering that it's okay to feel kind of crazy making art. It's a crazy time to be an artist, and it's a crazy world. It's not irrational. It makes sense that it's tough and that it feels tough. It's okay. And everyone's going through it. You have friends and other artists. Just keep creating. That's my prayer for you. Just keep making. All right. Thanks for drawing today.